Showing curiosity, feeling like you're curious, will make the other person that's looking at you, listening to you, feel like you want to connect with them. So if you can show that, if you can show it through how you look, how you move, your voice. So your voice is so important. If you can show your intention of that curiosity, that you want to connect, that you're interested in the other person who's on the other side of the camera, then that should help you become a stronger communicator and getting better and getting good at this.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are and wherever you're watching from. My name is Matt Pierce, host of the Visual Lounge, where we talk about using images and videos in the workplace. Today, we're going to be talking about something I think is really important. As you get on camera, as you're on screen for people, it is so easy to not build trust. It's easy to lose trust. So we're going to be talking with a speaking coach and expert about on-camera presence and how not to lose that trust. I know it's titled How to Lose Trust. We don't want to do that though. So let's go ahead and introduce our guest today, Peter Hopwood. So Peter travels the hybrid globe helping speakers, high-performing professionals, corporate teams, TEDx speakers, and founders to share more powerful stories and build accurate speaking and presence skills. Creating impact when it matters. Sharing dynamic public speaking, pitching, and presentation skills through individual coaching, Peter guides personal clients and corporate groups to construct strong storylines, deliver beautiful pitches and speeches while overcoming the anxiety of public speaking. With storytelling, strategy, confidence boosters, and connecting, he helps professionals and global teams define, craft, and deliver strong stories, connect with their audiences and customers, and take control of their message, storyline, and public speaking impact, both in person and virtually. With that all said, please help me welcome Peter Hopwood to the Visual Lounge. Hey, Peter.
Hello. I tell you what, that sounds so good. You've made me intrigued to hear what this guy has to say by giving an intro just like that. Although it was my intro that I gave you, but you saying it and listening to it, it sounds so good.
Well, Peter,
I did write it, but it sounds better when you say it.
That's right. That's right. It's always better when someone else says it. Well, Peter, I'm so glad that you're here with us today. We're gonna jump into some of our first questions, and we can get into a little bit more about who you are, what you do. But we like to ask 3 questions right up front for everybody. The first one is, you are doing all these things. You're helping people be on camera. You're helping people be on stages, things like that. But I'm curious, how did you get started with using like video and images in your work?
Yeah, well, essentially, as a speaker coach and helping people to stand on stages and in boardrooms, really connect by what they say, by how they move, by the connections they're trying to achieve. Through the pandemic, that was obviously a time where all my traveling stopped. I couldn't do it in person anymore, and after a kind of a long period of just wallowing and not really stepping up, I realized that actually here, in this screen, in this box, there are skills to be learned to connect, right? So it's clearly not the same as when you're in person and trying to do the same thing, connect, build that trust, build that connection. Here on a screen, it's different. There are so many other things that you have to think about, skills that you can learn, behaviors you can share. And so simply through the pandemic 2 years or so, that was really where I was able to kind of share my skills to help other people really create this connection. So whether it be sales teams that were trying to get good at this with their intro calls, building up that trust, building up that relationship at the beginning of their sales journey, or whether it was presenters or people who had to share certain information through the screen and do it in a good way, it gave me the chance to do that. So really, although I was doing it many years before as a presenter as well, through the pandemic, that was really gave me a chance to hone in on the real skills and, as I say, behaviors to get good at this. And when you get good at this, or you start to get good at this, you actually start to leave the competitors behind. You start to excel, and people remember you better. They build up more trust with you quicker, yeah, it's good for business, and everybody can connect with you better.
Well, I love that's, you know, I think that was an impetus for a lot of people to do a lot of different things. I noticed a shift in people being on camera, being comfortable on camera. Pre-pandemic, it was like people hated it, right? And I think people
Yeah.
still generally, a lot of people don't like it, but we've gotten much more used to it. So it's good to hear that you were able to make a little lemonade out of the lemons that your life threw us all.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. This clearly, even now, when we speak to each other, maybe well, yeah, I've been doing it quite a long time. I'm used to it. You're naturally used to it as well. Most people are doing it all the time, or they've been doing it all the time through the pandemic, and even a lot more now, perhaps. But still, this is not natural. This is not a natural thing we should be doing. However, as I say, if you look at it as a, strategic things you have to do, strategic behaviors, skills, ways of moving, ways of speaking, your intention, your eye contact, all these things you can put together and work on quite quickly. You can start to, as I say, start to get good at this, feel confident at this, and feel confident that what you say, how you show up is actually going to connect better with the people that are looking at you.
Yeah, for sure. So next question for you. You know, as a speaker, as a presenter, as someone who's been doing this now and helping people with particularly being in this box, right? Like, what does success look like for a good on-camera presence? Like, how would you know if you're being successful at it?
That's a fantastic question you just asked there, because it's really difficult to know whether you're doing well or you're not doing well, right? But maybe use this as a gauge, right? So basically, essentially, when you're on camera, when you're doing your Zoom calls, your virtual exchanges, record one or two of them, right? Have a look back at what you look like, right? So it's all about critiquing yourself and being aware of what this box is like to the people that are looking at it, right? So the perception. So look at the way you're looking at the camera. Look at the way, perhaps, do you have gestures? Are they moving? Does it seem like this is dynamic? When you look back at yourself, do you look at yourself and see yourself looking curious or feeling the intention you want to feel when you're connecting with that person? So just by looking at yourself, being aware, openly critiquing yourself, which for many of us is difficult because most of us probably never heard ourselves before, recorded ourselves, but doing it will actually really and quite quickly help you to probably do two things. Number one, you'll realize you're not as bad as you think. Okay. And number two, you'll start to see things that actually, I could have done that better, or maybe why was I moving so much, or maybe I wasn't moving enough, maybe I didn't have enough gestures, or maybe my background it just seems like there's something not right, or something that is not helping the communication, not helping to build up trust, or maybe not even helping the conversation. So when there's curiosity, that's a really important word I want to throw in there. And you do it really well. You have to, so since the beginning of this exchange, you've shown curiosity in the topic, right? In what we're about to talk about. You're not quite sure well, you have your questions, obviously. I'm kind of aware of really more or less what's going to happen, but actually the exchange, we don't know. It's unpredictable. But you've shown curiosity in this conversation, showing that through your voice, showing that through your gestures. So you, like me, you gesture a lot, right? So in this box, gesturing is good. It's really good because it shows the other person that we're alive, that we're moving. Keeping animated, but not a distraction, but keeping animated is something that, again, helps the other person feel like, okay, this is going somewhere. This is actually a connection. It keeps our brains moving and stimulated as well. So all these things, just by looking at yourself, you'll be able to tell whether you feel like you're getting somewhere or not. Also, as you start to share these or do these behaviors, you'll notice the people that you're talking to, whether they're sharing those behaviors or not, right? So the ones that you learn, the ones that you're doing, right, you'll start to critique in your mind. You won't say it to them, but you'll critique in your mind each time you have a Zoom call or a virtual exchange. You'll start to look at their backgrounds. I'm like constantly looking and critiquing in my mind, not telling them, of what I see in front of me, whether it's a fake background, whether the person's using their hands or not, whether I can see or feel there's actually curiosity coming through, there's an intention coming through, right? Whether they're looking at me, most of the time, whether they're looking at me through the screen, through the camera here, right? The voice tells us so much. So all of those things put together can start to help us gauge whether we're kind of on the right track. It's a really tough one to get right all the time, but again, it's like a journey. Can I ask you this, Matthew? How do you know? Naturally, it's your profession. Naturally, you're making a business out of this. But put that aside, how do you know you're doing well and connecting? Love to hear.
Yeah, I as someone who I speak at a lot of different conferences and events, it's so much easier when I can see people, I can watch them, I can see their body language. In this sense, it's particularly because I do a lot of pre-recorded, so I don't have an audience in a Zoom room necessarily. So it's harder, right? It's harder to know if you're going to make the connection, but that's why I think you program a little bit, right? Like you are planning, okay, here's an injunction point, here's an inflection, here's all the things that are going to happen. But in Zoom, I think it's a lot of what you said, right? Like, what is the reaction? Are people just kind of sitting there, and you can tell they're doing this thing where they're looking off at the other screen, maybe working on something? I think paying attention to what they're saying, what they're doing, how they're interacting. Are they? I love the thing about curiosity, right? Are they also equally as curious, or are they just kind of sitting and staring, right?
Yeah, but that's often actually a difficult one, because our audiences, whether they're online or whether they're virtual or even live, they don't have to, and they don't always do it. They don't have to give us the signals that we interpret as signals of listening or signals of being engaged, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes, quite often, certainly here in this environment, I think we have to kind of just believe in ourselves that we're actually doing this in the right way. We're doing all the things we should be doing. We're trying to show curiosity, as I say. We're using gestures to let them see that we have a better intonation with our voice, naturally. So the more we're using our gestures, and you can see here, I'm not using gestures like large gestures all the time, but you can see what my hands are doing, and you can see I'm using them as batons. I'm using them as using the rhythm as well. But you can see you have an indication of what they're doing. So just the gestures can really help. But going back to the original topic here, again, I think we sometimes have to just believe in what we're doing, know we're trying to engage, and even if we don't get the engagement back, because we can't. I mean, to expect it is probably wrong, because not everybody will show they're engaged. Not everybody will show they like what they hear. Then not everybody will show that they're actually listening to you, although they may well be listening to you. I know it as a fact. When I'm really listening to someone, or I'm really thinking, or I'm making a decision about something, often listening to pictures, let's say, I'm actually, I've got a frown on my face. My arms are kind of like this. I'm sort of leaning back slightly. But in fact, these may look as if they're kind of closed gestures. But in fact, for many, when we think, we cross our arms, or we have a frown, right?
Yep.
Or we go back slightly, right? So if we were to take all these individual signals that we see and that we hear or don't hear, I'm sure it would start to play with our minds, and we would start to doubt, right? So what I say to everybody that I work with, in terms of people who stand on the stage, certainly, and again on screen as well, never expect your audience to give you the signals you want them to give you, right? Even the clap at the end of a speech, right? fools speakers. Speakers often think, well, okay, big room of people, they're clapping at the end, but everybody's kind of programmed to clap. That doesn't mean you were great. That doesn't mean you're a great
Right.
speaker. It's just like the automatic reaction of an audience. And if the audience is bigger, if you've got a really big room of more than 1,000 people, the claps are going to be higher and stronger. And you're going, because at the end, our brains kind of tell us, well, this is the thing that we remember the most, and we got to fool ourselves to think we're actually better than we were. But anyway, the signals that come through, never kind of see them as Bible, because often we won't get the signals back that are the true signals of how people feel.
Well, I love it. And you've already given us so many great things. I want to get to our third question, then we'll dive into more about trust, because I think it's really important for people to have that trust, right? As obviously as you're trying to get the reaction, trying to see success. So real quick, Peter, you've given us a couple things like gestures. There's some things that you can do to be successful, to improve. What would you say is like one more tip, just quick tip that you think would improve their presence on video? Obviously, I think there's energy. I think one thing I've noticed you doing during this even is you lean in a little bit, like you're like kind of back, and then you're like lean in and talk. Got any kind of one thing you think anyone can do to improve kind of quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of dibbled and dabbled on quite a few things there. So the moving, so essentially I stand up. I stand up because it helps me to feel more stable. I feel like, so like when I'm presenting, or even if this was just an intro call, a sales intro call, just standing up is almost like saying, I'm here to show myself. I'm here to show you respect in a way, although that sitting down and standing up in terms of respect isn't really a lot. However, in my mind, when I'm standing up, I feel like I'm kind of giving you more respect, because I'm here to meet you, right? So standing up can give me this. You can see I can actually go. I can lean in. I can do it with my gestures as well. I can say something that I want you to hear more. I can lean in when I'm listening. I might lean back slightly. I can do all these things. If I was sitting down, it's more difficult to do that. And again, the sound that's coming through, my voice is only as good as the air that goes inside and comes out. And if you're sitting down, especially if you're sitting down all day, by the end of the day, you know what it feels like. Everyone does at an office, by their desk. Your stomach is all kind of crumpled up, and the air isn't as good as it could be. So standing is a good one. So if I was to give you one other big tip, so the eye contact, I think I've already mentioned that as well. Again, just by practicing looking at the lens. Now, this is a big one for so many people, right? So many people have an issue with this, still have an issue with it, because when I look at the lens, and there's other people on the call, I can't see what they're doing. I can have an idea. I've got an idea of what's happening, but I can't actually see their eyes and get the connection that maybe I want. However, priority, I always say it, the priority is what? Is it me looking at you, or is it you building up the trust in me? I want you, let's say this was a sales call, I want you to build up the trust in me. I want you to feel like I'm curious about you, curious about how we can work together, curious about the work we can do together as a collaboration, right? So the more I kind of look at you, the more I give you my eyes, the more I kind of show you, look through this screen and imagine you here, the more you have the feeling like I'm respecting you. There's an element of respect when I look at you more, especially when you're talking to me. So if somebody else is talking to me through their camera, but maybe not looking at the camera as I'm looking at the camera, they'll still see me looking at them as if I'm really listening to them. So doing it as much as you can. Again, it's a really sort of strange thing to get used to, but you've got used to it. I've got used to it. Presenters, we do it all the time by looking at the camera and imagining this camera. That is where that person is that you're talking to. So I'm looking at the camera now. To my left is I can see with the peripheral vision. I can see you nodding. I've kind of got really good at feeling what's going on there. Even your blink, when you blink, I can feel that. I can see that as well. I can hear. My ears are better. I'm listening even more because
Yeah.
I don't have all those elements, there for me. So it's practice, getting used to it. But the more you do it, and again, looking back at it when you've recorded yourself, you'll see that actually this is actually a really good thing. So if you start with that, get used to that, it will start to boost up your confidence, and as I say, you'll start to get better on this virtual journey.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it is a challenge, right? Because this is not natural, as you said. It's not natural to look at a lens and stare into it. And, and again, I have the same issue you. It's a peripheral kind of thing. I have to see where you are, what you're doing. Do I sense if you're interested or not? So it's really great advice for anyone who's listening. Get good at looking into your lens. Well, Peter, I do want to move forward because we got a few other things I want to try to talk about. And I set out as the premise of the show is a little bit about trust. And we're labeled the show about breaking trust, right? But really, we don't want to break trust. So I want to learn from you the things I can do to build trust and not inadvertently break some of the trust when we're in these relationships, whether it's a virtual experience like this, or even if it's like a pre-recorded where someone's going to watch it. Because I imagine they're similar. Obviously, there's differences, but I imagine if you're watching a video of me and I'm doing something that's maybe going to break some of that trust, I want to know so I can get better at it. And I think I think looking at the camera, having that, if you ever been in maybe I shouldn't air too much dirty laundry here, but have you ever been in a fight with someone and they're like, look at me when I'm talking to you? People say that to their kids or their significant other, whoever, because you want to feel acknowledged. And I think there's something about that when you're talking. So I think that's a good one. So before we talk about the what to do or what not to do, for you, why is trust in this environment? So if you could sum it up, quick, two sentence. Why is trust so important? I think we all kind of know it and feel it, but I'd love to hear it from you.
Yeah, I mean, here, okay, in person, we can show so many other signals that build up that trust, that help the other person when they're perceiving us, when they're judging us. They have so many other things. They have lots of things to go by. Right. And in a natural human connection environment, we've been, as kids, we grow up to be teenagers, to be adults. We've been trying to connect and meet people. We shake their hand, we say a few words, we then talk about other things, we smile, all these things we've been doing for years, right? So we kind of as humans, we're kind of good at it. But here, we don't have those. We don't have those at all. All we really have is a flat box, right? And so we have to kind of imitate as many things as we can from the in-person world to here, right? So I've already mentioned quite a few already. The curiosity, showing curiosity, looking at the camera, movement, right? Is so this animation, it's keeping our brain stimulated, is so important because here in this world, if I start to lose your attention through what you see, or through what I say, or through how I say something, with the tone, with the sounds that you hear, you on the other side can just, with your finger, click and leave me. Yeah. Right. We can't do that in the real world, right? It's really difficult to do it. Well, you could just like walk away. Just, I'm out of here, right? But or in an audience listening to a conference, most people don't just get up and walk. Some people do, but most people, I haven't. Maybe you have, but most people don't get up and just walk out, right? But here, whether it's something on YouTube, whether it's recorded, whatever it is, our audience are really powerful, are far more powerful here than anywhere else, because with their finger, bang, they can just click and then we're gone. We're gone forever. Maybe not forever, but we're gone at that moment. So really, we have to get people's attention and keep their attention. That's probably even more difficult, right, here than anywhere else. You have to grab it and maintain that attention throughout, right? So in terms of trust, these are the things we really need to think about. We have to, again, I have to gain your attention. You don't owe me a thing. Listening to me now, okay, it's your podcast. You invite me on, and naturally you want me here. However, listeners, people that are watching this or watching a clip of this, they owe me nothing. They owe you nothing, Matthew. They owe nobody anything, and they don't owe us anything to stick around. So they don't have to stay with us. They don't have to listen to us. They don't have to subscribe. They have their choice, right?
Absolutely.
So we have to give them something in terms of value, something in terms of why they're going to stick around, right? Why should they listen? Why should they listen to this? And you did this beautifully. So at the beginning of this exchange, you've really kind of given us a kind of snapshot of why people should stick around, why people should listen to this conversation between me and you about virtual exchanges, about voice, about all these things that we're talking about right now. And you've said to them, you've told them, you're going to get this, this, and this, and hopefully it will help you become a stronger presenter, a stronger person, more confident using this format, which is what this podcast is essentially all about, right? So people know that when they come here as well, right? So we have to build up that value, and we have to accept that people can just leave us just with a click of a finger. So we have to really build up that trust right from the beginning, and really, again, show curiosity, show that we want to give value, show that we're ready to give something. If I tell you I'm going to give you something, probably in your mind, whether you have no idea what it is, but if I just say to you, look, you're going to get something. I'm going to give you something. Hopefully it's something that's going to be of value. It's something that hopefully you'll like. It's going to make you smile. You don't know what that is. You haven't got an idea, but in your brain is telling you, actually, I'm going to stick around because I'm going to get something. And when we get something, often when it's free, but in fact it's not free because they're giving us their time. So listeners of this podcast, you right now, whoever's listening, you're giving us your time. We have to, in exchange for that time, we really need to give you value, right? So having that in as a mindset has always helped me, and that's something, when I'm working with coaching speakers, coaching people who are pitching, time is the biggest commodity of all, right? So you really have to respect that. They're giving you their time. They don't have to. No one does. But they have. Hopefully they have. Hopefully they're still with us right now. Right. And we have to give them back the value.
So Peter, we've talked a lot about this on-camera presence, and I think it's so important, right? Because that's a lot of the delivery that you're going to give. And as someone who's coached, you've in your bio talked about coaching like TEDx, and you've done a lot of presentations yourself. I know there's the on-camera, and that's super important. You're just your presence, right? It's your voice, it's the way you act, interact, engage with the camera, with the audience, right? What's the role of, like, in your work and what you've seen, the role of like the visual aids that come up, so if someone's giving a presentation, I've watched tons of TED type of presentations, and it's obviously the onstage movement, that those interactions are really important, and they focus on, in an 18-minute video, they probably focus most of it on the person telling the story, but we also see these visuals. So how does that play into building trust with the audience, if at all?
Yeah. So okay. So let's say we're watching a TEDx talk. The number one thing, certainly for me, in all of this, that is going to grab our attention, that's going to really keep us hopefully engaged, hopefully emotionally sticking with what the speaker is saying, is actually, and you may disagree with me, but is actually the voice.
Okay.
The sound. So sound is so important. So you can have somebody that's walking on stage, looks a mess, looks a total mess, right? Although when you do a TEDx talk, who would look a mess? Most people don't look a mess. However, somebody that's not looking that respectable, I don't know, he comes on or she comes on, and you've already made this judgment in your mind about who they are. It's often when we see like reality shows, like, I don't know, or music shows like The Voice or the X Factor, we see somebody come on, they don't look like a singer, they don't move like a singer, they don't sound when they speak like a singer, but when they suddenly sing, some of them, not all of them actually, some of them completely surprise us with this beautiful, amazing, crazy voice, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with speaking on stage. People will come out, and obviously you've got to look as respectable as you can and create all these points of trying to persuade your audience, or that judgment that they're giving you, trying to get closer to where you want to be. But your voice is number one. So that's the number one thing. Now, in terms of visual aids, in terms of slides, these are all there simply just to help make things maybe even more clearer, especially when it's maybe a complex theme or topic. Using slides which make things simple can really help, right? It also sometimes takes away we want as a speaker, we want people to be listening to us, focused on us. But let's say it's a longer speech or a longer talk, just a switch to the slide can just break up the movement, and also give our brains something a little bit more stimulating to focus on. And then you come back. And again, when I'm nodding, so for example, if I want you to agree with me on something, or I know it's something that you probably would agree with, right? I could say something like, listen, you'd agree with me that right now the situation in terms of inflation pretty much across the globe, it's tough, and it's tough for me, and I'm sure it's tough for you as well, right? You'd agree with me there, right? So yeah. Even just by saying something that I think you're going to agree with me on, nodding and doing this movement can really help. And weather presenters often do that movement as well. So next time you're watching a presenter, weather presenter, try to see the movement they do. And in fact, I'll tell you this now, there is actually one presenter in the UK. She's on BBC. She's energetic. She's got a really smooth voice, lovely tone. She's an attractive woman as well, which also helps. But right at the end, when she's finished, what she does, and she does this every single time, she gives a little wink. Just a small little wink. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but she gets away with it because it's all part of this feel-good, 2-minute, snappy engagement that hopefully people will remember. And I certainly remember that wink.
Yeah, so it's about being purposeful, right? You're thinking about every gesture as a extension of what you're saying to help. I think with the nodding in particular, it reminds me of what's called mirror neurons, right? Like we have these neurons that will fire. If I see you smiling, for instance, smiling's a big one. If I'm smiling, I'm happy. You are much more likely to feel that need and want to smile because our neurons start to fire like, oh, we're smiling today. So I think there's a lot to that, but being very purposeful in those things to help engage your audience so that they're coming along with you and they're trusting you. And of course, trust is a delicate thing. So Peter, we're going to move to our speedrun questions in here in just a minute. I want to ask one more question of you, and we're going to look at this. We've talked a lot about you've given us so many gems of things that we can do. I want to flip the script a little bit and let's talk about things that you've seen that break that trust. Like, and obviously we've talked, you could take all the things that you just said and well, don't use hand gestures. Don't look at the camera. But are there other things you see that just, you're like, oh my gosh, that really can make it hard for an audience to connect with a presenter or break that trust right away that they're doing something that's like, oh, that could have been a good presentation.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I mean, if we just quickly, there's loads, but quickly. So the first couple, low hanging fruit, naturally, our logistics, our setup. If it's okay, I've got a ring light here. I've got one. I've got a light here. You've got yours professionally as well. But we don't. Everybody else, you don't need to buy a ring light. You just have to make sure you've got light in front of you. Light which lets people see your face.
Yes.
Light which lets people see your expressions. If they can't, or if it's difficult to do that, it becomes a big distraction. It becomes far bigger than it becomes a very big distraction indeed. Another big distraction is the sound. If the sound is your computer audio and that seems to be okay, if it's a specialized mic that you've bought, or great equipment like you've got as well, this is all fantastic. However, if the audio, if there's crackling, or if you can't hear it enough, or there's a disturbance, that becomes a real distraction, right? It's the same as like Wi-Fi. With Wi-Fi, if we have to wait a while, even if it's for 30 seconds, 10 seconds even, we get agitated, right? Because in this world we live in right now, everything has to be like straight away. So if we can't see you clearly, or if there's a distraction, if we can't hear you clearly, or there's a distraction, these are the things that are going to really start you're starting on the wrong foot, right? Another one for me, I'm not sure your perspective on this, but backgrounds, right? Fake backgrounds. Right, we all have our own spot, right? We all have our own Wi-Fi Zoom spot in our home, in our office, wherever it is, right? And we've probably been sticking with it forever, right? And that's cool because it's a habit, and we know where it is, and we know what happens here, and we've done it many times, and we're happy with it. However, putting a fake background, something that is not that you don't see where I am. You're in America right now. I'm in Croatia right now. This is where I live, and I imagine probably that's a part of your home where you live. Is it?
Yeah,
Is it?
it is.
Yeah. So that's you, and that's cool. That's you. This is me. And so you see that, and that becomes, we kind of beam to each other. If I put a fake background, for many, not saying everybody, but for many, subconsciously, it gives us this impression. It could give us this impression that we're hiding something. That what why can't I see the background? I know a lot of people that've got busy lives, kids running around, messy home. You don't see it right now, but if I was to turn my camera, you would see a very messy part of my home. But that's okay, and that's fine. But there's usually one place. There is always one place in your home, even if it's a bathroom. Actually, bathrooms are really good, although not maybe great for the sound. But if you can fix that, even better. But in terms of the lighting and what's behind you, bathrooms are really good, especially tiles, right? But if you've got a fake background, it gives us the impression, what is that person hiding? What is there something that why can't I see his wall, or why can't I see his or her office, right? So
Yeah.
the fake backgrounds. Also, beds. I don't want to see. I don't want to see in your bedroom. I don't want to see you in your bedroom anymore. Bookshelves, right? Bookshelves. That was like just a kind of a phase where, well, I think that phase is probably still continuing for many, where we just see, bookshelves behind it, which is great. Okay, however, it's not. It can often become a distraction, right? So just think about what people see all in this box, because again, we have full control over this, and that's a good thing. So I can actually spend, and you can as well, hours and hours and thinking about what you want people to see. And that's a good thing. Other places you can't control that. When you go for a meeting or a presentation, you depend on the environment, on the room, on the conference hall, on the stage.
Yeah. Well, Peter, just as you're taking a lull there, I'll say I've been in lots of conference halls, and they all look the same. It's all the brown kind of same, really ugly carpet, and it doesn't do anything for that adding to what I'm
Yeah.
doing. At least now I've got some personality that, a TechSmith pillow that if I go to my full shot, you can see back there. I've got a fun little helmet kind of speaking to what kind of were fun. I have fun. It's a little personality stuff. And so I love what you're saying about the control. I think it's a great idea. And I also understand that reality is that I know people who their space is small. They don't have a lot of space. So I'm not maybe an fake backdrop, but I also understand the role of and especially maybe we'll call them high stakes presentations, things that really matter, right? Whatever's behind you does matter. If I put a bunch of, and I'm going to call myself out here for anyone who's listening to the show. You can go to whatever time this is in the podcast and you can see right behind my head, I've got a little thing. I just need to take it off the wall. But it's like, luckily my head covers it 95% of the time. But it's like that one little thing I move and you see it and it's problematic, right? It doesn't reflect well. But I'd much rather just have it there and cover it with my big old noggin than use a fake backdrop. So I totally get where you're coming from. So these have been some great tips.
Also, I think also we forgive it. We're forgiving. I mean, if it's not, if it's not a fake background, but it's your own background and it looks okay, and there's no big distractions. And then all these other things that you're doing in terms of your behavior and these behaviors that you're doing to connect, that's what people remember. That's what people will focus on, right? So if you can focus on that and just try to find something that feels natural, that lets people into where you are. And again, if you have got a place maybe that has a picture on the wall that causes a bit of curiosity, that's all good, so
For sure.
so there's actually, I have to tell you, there's on Twitter, I don't know whether you know about this, I think it's called Rate My Skype Room. Yeah, I think at Rate My Skype Room, or it might be at Rate My Room. Either way, look on Twitter, and it's actually a Twitter feed, a Twitter handle, sorry, which is simply people share their Twitter, their Zoom, their virtual exchange backgrounds, right? Some of them are like 1 out of 10, awful, terrible, and some of them are really cool, So it's quite interesting just to look through that feed, and you can see, how people have thought about what people see. And again, constantly, this is something we can't get away from. And we have to deal with it, and we have to accept it, is judgment, right? People are judging us constantly. People are judging me right now. They're judging you. They're judging this podcast. They're judging and some of that judgment is maybe it's judgment we don't want to hear, because everybody has the right not to like us and not to listen to us and not to accept us, which is okay. But if we can, and here we can control it. Like I say, you can control all of this. So if you can create something that actually gets closer to what you want people to feel and what you want people to get from this exchange, and that could be very different. It could be very different depending on that exchange you have, right? So if you're thinking about it and just having a little bit of time, I've said hours and hours, but you don't need obviously hours and hours, just 5 minutes of thinking, okay, what do I, and you can play around with it. You can play it all day. You can pop into different rooms all day to try to get a spot which seems to work, and feels natural, right?
Yeah. I love that. And it has always been worth my time to make sure whatever's behind me looks good and is set. So Peter, we're going to jump right into our speed round questions. These again are quick answers to quick questions. So let's go ahead. Jump in.
Let's do it.
All right, Peter. So we've actually got our dice cam up and ready. So we're going to roll a 12-sided die. We got 12 questions. The first question is going to be
roll it.
It's question number 12, which is
awesome. Love it.
So we're going to bring up so everyone can see on screen number 12 here. So question number 12. What's your one go-to tool that helps you get your job done on a regular basis. This could be software, could be something physical, could be mental. What's your one tool that you use? You're like, that is the tool that I use all the time.
I'm gonna have to say my waistcoat. I'm not wearing it right now, but I wear this like waistcoat, and I wear a shirt and I wear a tie. Now I say that to you, and I'm sure maybe you're thinking, some people are even thinking, what is it, a circus?
Oh no, we got, look at that.
There, right? Yeah, there it is there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I wear that. I've got two different ones, but I'll tell you what, that waistcoat, it's been with me everywhere. And look, as a presenter, as a host, as an MC, it's formal. It looks kind of businessy and corporate, but at the same time, it's often quite different from what the audience is wearing. I feel good in it. I don't feel like a circus. What do you call him? A circus? The guy
Like
at the beginning of the
the ringmaster, right?
The ringmaster. Yeah, it's not about being a ringmaster, but it's been about a little bit different. And sometimes I even play around with different ties as well.
Yeah.
But I would have to say it's my waistcoat.
I love that as an answer. That is a fantastic answer. So let's go ahead into our next question here and roll the die again. Oh, you got double 12. That's like worth extra bank money in Monopoly, I think. And that is a 9. Okay, so let's pull up the number 9 here question. So question number 9. Peter, I asked you a lot of questions. You shared a lot of information, but is there one question you wish I would have asked you today? Maybe not.
I have to say no.
Perfect.
I have to say there is no question I wish that you had asked me. We've covered loads of stuff, haven't we? We've covered body, we've covered movement, we've covered voice. I mean, I've done the job for you. I kind of gave you everything without you asking me.
It was easy.
Is there one question? No, I just, no.
Perfect.
Sorry. The that is no.
That's a great answer. That's the thing about Speed Round. We don't know what questions we're going to ask you in the Speed Round.
No, I love this round. I love the spontaneity of this podcast. It's crazy. Although people listening, they can't see what's happening on the screen. They have to like go back and watch it.
Yeah, yeah. And there is a video podcast so they can go watch on YouTube. Peter, because that one was a no answer, let's just do one more real quick. We'll make this super fast. So we went from 9. Oh, I got to get rid of the 9 though, to 7. So question number 7 is this. You are a speaker, you're an MC, you're a speaking coach, you do loads of stuff, which I'm sure you absolutely are just brilliant at and you love. But if you had to shift careers out of that world, what is it that you would do?
Oh, wow. What a question. What a question. I love it.
Bring in the heat.
You got it. I love this. I would have to say a football player. A soccer player, not American football.
No,
football.
Football is the right term.
Football, we play here in Europe, right? So a football player, a striker, scoring goals, earning money, lots of money, hell of a lot of money, and having a great time. That's it. I mean, it's a schoolboy fantasy that never actually unfolded. Although I did have trials. I had trials for my hometown team called Watford FC. They're in the Championship right now, but they used to be in the Premiership. Elton John was actually the chairman for many years, so he made the club famous. I had trials for Watford FC, and at the end of it, they told me, we'll let you know, we'll call you if you're in, right? And I'm still waiting for that call. It hasn't happened, but I'm still hopeful.
Well, Peter, if this doesn't work out, we wish you the best in your football career.
Well, thank you.
But we want to thank you for joining us. So before we wrap up, where can people connect with you? If they want to learn more, they want to connect with you and maybe getting some speaking consulting or whatever it is that they'd like to do, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, the best way, go over to LinkedIn, find me there, Peter Hopwood, Speaker Coach, TEDx. You'll find me. It'll come up probably quite quickly. On the screen. Connect with me there. If you're connecting and you've listened to this podcast, write a little note that you've been listening to the podcast. You can see everything that I've been doing. That will give you a good flavor of maybe, just maybe, how I can help you or your teams with their communication as well. So jump over to LinkedIn and you can find me there.
Fantastic. Now, we like to wrap up with our final take, Peter. This is our quick summary of kind of the big idea of something we talked about today. So, Peter, what is your final take?
My final take really is simply all based around one word, and that is curiosity. Showing curiosity, feeling like you're curious, will make the other person that's looking at you, listening to you, feel like you want to connect with them. So if you can show that, if you can show it through how you look, how you move, your voice. So your voice is so important. If you can show your intention of that curiosity, that you want to connect, that you're interested in the other person who's on the other side of the camera, then that should help you become a stronger communicator, getting better and getting good at this.
Fantastic. Peter, thank you so much for joining me today in the Visual Lounge.
Well, thank you so much. I hope we can do this once again sometime in the future.
You bet. Well, everybody, we want to thank you for tuning in to today's show. I hope you got some really strong ideas about what you can do to get better in your presence, to build that trust and to not break that trust as you're on camera. Because, you know, we talk about this all the time on the Visual Lounge, is that it's not about, you know, doing everything all awesome at once. It's about building those skills over and over. And it's starting with that first video, starting with by trying to look at the camera a little bit more, doing the things that Peter taught us to do today will help you get better. So as we like to end every show, we hope you take a little bit of time to level up. We'll see you next time.